This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey asks us about being a champion.
Woo!
Please tell me why. The car is in the front yard, and This is what a Joey sounds like.
Oh, that was really good. That was really, really, really good. I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, Scaramouche, can you hear the fandango? This is what Eartha Kitt sounds like.
And this is what executive producer and queen Jess Vander sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
Queen Eartha Kitt. What you were like by the
I was
end
going
of the
toward
very
it,
end?
yeah. And I didn't get enough of it in there. Can you hear the fandango? Like, I really needed to bring it up, but I liked the queen on queen. It felt really like that felt cool, but I'm sorry.
I loved it.
Miss Kit. Thank you.
I would listen to a dramatic reading of you as Eartha Kitt reading many things.
Yes. Amen. Amen. Next life, next job.
Do we have any housekeeping? Ooh, it'll be too late. You will have just heard last week Aaron's recording of his article that we said we would occasionally be putting the state of pieces in. So congratulations. That was great. I loved every second of it.
I appreciate it. And if for whatever reason scheduling hasn't had that run yet, get ready because it's good. And you'll get it then. So I'm giving us some outs. I don't really know what our
you are either going to
is.
love this or have already loved it.
Yes.
And now we're talking about it. This thing that did or did not happen, but will or did happen. I lost myself in that time loop.
That's it. Be in it. Be in the time loop. Let's do the time warp again. I think that means the house is spick and span. Yeah.
Spick and span.
Yes.
Do we want to do any like intro drum roll for Aaron and Jess's favorite episode? Sports ball.
Joey, we're excited to ask you what's on your mind. You're going to share it. And it does have to do with the sports ball. So, Joey, what's on your mind? What you think about?
So, as you know, and probably has come up here, I grew up in New Hampshire. I'm a Celtics fan. The Celtics just won the NBA Finals and are champions of the world, depending on who you talk to, but at minimum champions of the NBA. You have opinions already.
Today I learned that the Celtics are a basket sports team.
They're also a soccer and or football team as well.
That's why I was confused. What?
Yes.
Explain everything.
Yes.
You can give multiple things the same name. That is the...
So wait, but before you continue, was Larry Bird at point guard?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Larry
cool.
Bird, and
again,
the spirit of Larry Bird was at point guard. He was a forward.
Wow, wasn't even his.
So
he's I saw a picture. He's tall.
Also, when someone says that they're a Celtics fan, do you assume that they are referring to the basket sport?
If they are in the United States, for sure. Also,
I see.
I think it's called Celtic. Is the football team. Like the soccer team is called Celtic, not like the Celtics.
And they're not.
I believe I'm not an expert in that. Yeah. Could be Celtic, depending, are you going with the old Gaelic pronunciation?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't know.
Also, do we know that, this is extremely important. Do we know if this is like in the same realm of conversation about sports teams named after populations? What is the origin? Do we know?
The Celtics are from Boston. There is a large Irish population in Boston, certainly. I mean, there still is, but like earlier in the sort of Irish diaspora, many Irish wound up in that like greater Boston area. I'm assuming that is the origin, but I have never confirmed or dug deeper into it.
Well, I'm like, ooh, is this like the Cleveland Indians? Like, is this the Boston Celts? And it's just the Celtics, and I don't know because.
Also, as someone who hails from a place whose basket sports team is named after a number, I'm just throwing out questions.
76.
Well,
it's very confusing. Yeah.
We are off to a great start to basket sport.
Back to you,
sports
Joe.
ball,
right?
Sports ball.
Yes, the context. Right. Sorry.
Well, so the Celtics won the NBA championship, which was awesome for me. But it was also sort of like an interesting year where they were the best team in the league in terms of record through the regular season and sort of ran roughshod through the playoffs and like were quite dominant. And so it didn't have like the like intense like game 7 types of games. But the two sort of main players, like the 1 and 2 like best players on the Celtics are Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And they've been on the same team since Jaylen Brown was drafted first, Jayson Tatum came next. Jayson Tatum is largely seen as the face of the franchise. He's like young, just turned 26, like handsome, very athletic, very good at basketball. They've been sort of in the conversation for a long time, but never won. They just won it. Big deal. Great. Go championship. The thing that is funny that I wanted to talk to you all about was this is a man who has been dedicating his life to being good at basketball for a really long time. The NBA championship naturally was like a major dream. He had gotten close to it. They were in the finals 2 years ago and lost to the Golden State Warriors. So they like got so close. He does it. And in this process, the aftermath afterward, there has been a ton of conversation around sort of his like, in quotes, like only pro athlete with a negative aura. Like he didn't celebrate well enough or like with the right vibes or like the right magnetism and sort of like personality. And that's like not really his thing. But as like a professional athlete, like increasingly probably like, and particularly in basketball, athletes are evaluated based on like personality metrics as well. Like also what are the vibes like? And so I wanted to ask you all as he is sort of being like dragged for not being like a compelling enough champion. How do we champion?
I always love the questions. I feel like my first response is always like complimentary of the question. That's a really good question, Joey. I really like that. I'd like to talk about that. But the reason it resonates with me is because personally, I am, I'm not anti, but I'm just not a social media person. And walk with me down this road for a moment. In today's day and age, when you gain a certain level of notoriety, positive notoriety around a certain skill, ability, whatever, you start getting attention, then naturally you start getting treated as an influencer, so to speak. Like your thoughts and what you think and how you share it and whatnot is going to be the thing that people really care about. And in today's sort of social media environment in which these influencers are flourishing, there is hyper scrutiny on the distance between your persona, your public persona, and your private thoughts. And everybody believes that they have unfettered access to whatever it is that you think, whatever it is. And at the same token, it's a blood sport to wait for either of those things to not be aligned with each other or for one of those inside thoughts not to match what the dominant consensus is. And so, of course, I'm going to bring something about sports back to me because I can talk about myself all day long. But I can identify with Jayson Tatum, like the thought that you are really, really skilled as an athlete. And then, as has happened with all celebrity of all time, the public now has, like, again, unfettered access to, like, everything that you want to think and share. That's not just, like, scary or unfortunate or whatever. That's deeply, deeply disturbing. And it's perhaps it's unfair, but it's the public contract. It's the contract of being in the public eye today. Like, you have to have a public colonoscopy every time you go on the internet every day.
God.
That's it. And that's why I post one time a year. That's why I do that.
I mean, it is like, what's interesting is it maybe isn't surprising, and maybe not even the first time that he's done this. He talked about being like very into Kobe for a really long time. And I think maybe he's just like a very analytical person. And like he would just like aggressively watch Kobe videos on YouTube when he was a young kid coming up through like high school and AAU. And then his game had elements of Kobe in it naturally, like jab steps and things like that. Like those components aren't necessary. They won't be on the quiz.
I was about to say, wait, dab steps? Is that's the dabbing?
Step. A jab step.
Oh, wait, jab step. Yeah. I thought it was like dabbing. Okay, cool. I got it. Okay, a jab step. I see.
But
I failed the quiz.
Like some of the criticism is like, well, is he just like taking these like celebratory moments from other people and like replicating them because it's like, oh, is he a robot? He just like couldn't come up with his own things. And I'm like, do you have to sign up for that now? Like, you know?
I mean, sort of, kind of, you do. And I think about it in any sort of competitive spectator dynamic, you as the audience are putting so much like mental energy into these individuals' success that like everything that happens to them is a slight against you, and everything that happens good for them is like a little win for you. And so if you're watching, of course, I'm going to take it to somewhere else I understand a little bit better. If you're watching one of the queens on Drag Race, like, win a challenge, and they're not like, and you like that queen and they did it and it was amazing, and you just see them go like, yay, I guess I did it. There's so much that goes on in that moment. There's a little bit of like, you've disparaged my support of you by not allowing me to feel your joy. But then also, are you like, is this a joke to you? Is this just like, is this all a game that you're playing within the game? Because the contract we have is that I live vicariously through you on the court because I never can. Like, so I don't know. I go to Oscar winners. I go to all this. Any type of fandom. I feel like that has been a part of the contract for a long time.
It's how basically any win has an element that is earned, sure, and however you want to handle that part, fine. But then there's the other part that is gift, or some might call it luck. And that, and like how you handle that part is the thing that somebody's gonna have thoughts about. Of like, oh, you made this. You got this. And now, like, do you appreciate it? This, like, that this community, like, would really hope that you might. I mean, again, the like me version that I can relate to is like quite literally like a gift experience. Like, just because it's your birthday doesn't mean that it's like, oh yes, that is a gift. Thank you for that gift. It's like, no, you have to like, if you like it, you have to show somebody you like it. And that's like part of the contract here.
Well, what's interesting is he is being, I think, like a gracious gift recipient, to use this metaphor. I think they're just like, you're not cool enough. Like you're not like compelling enough, which is like a thing that he can't change, and that's like not why he's good at basketball. And I'm sure he is, like what's interesting about him is like he is like a loving father, sort of famously. Like he brings his kid to like all the games, and he seems like a good dude, has like a great reputation, is sort of like the like role model-y type of guy, as best I can understand from the outside. Teammates love him, like all of those things. But then it's like, also be like cool as shit. Like people get pissed if athletes don't say anything, and he's not doing like the I'm like withdrawn, I'm like removing myself. Like interestingly, like last year, Nikola Jokić won the championship, who is like Serbian and is like sort of like, I'm just here to like play basketball and get my check and go home. But then he's more compelling to everyone by not acting in that, because he just like goes home and like rides horses in like a little like tiny carriage being pulled behind a horse around a track, and like dancing in like Serbian like clubs that feel sort of like a little bit like old world in terms of like more like traditional dances and things like that. And everyone's like, he's cool because he doesn't want us. But like Jayson Tatum's like, thank you, I love this. And everyone's like, nah, you're not it.
Maybe then another possible piece about it that feels sports specific is that so much of what people love about sports is the story of it all. And the way, like, if you have a story in your mind, you build up how it ends, and you have maybe your heart set on who the good guy is and who you want to, like, what triumph you hope to see and how you hope to see it. Sometimes a great twist plays with that on purpose, and it's like, ha ha, and you're like, oh, you got me good, and it made me feel something. But also then sometimes you're just like, womp womp, that wasn't what I had hoped this would be. And maybe it's just this poor guy. It's just not the story ending people were looking for.
I like this a lot because as much as I think it's about sports, I think it's about sports celebrity, maybe, or just like celebrity itself, because I can't help but think about like politics, comedy. I already talked about drag queen competitions, but like you can apply, I think, that idea of like those who are witnessing are generating a narrative or and following a narrative at the same time. And when there are disconnects between major beats within that narrative, it's like watching a movie that has an unsatisfying ending or is paced really poorly. And like by nature, this is all spontaneous and it's all uncontrollable. One thing, Tina Fey was on Bowen Yang's podcast with Matt Rogers, Las Culturistas, recently. And Bowen was talking to Tina Fey about like how as he's become so much more famous because of SNL, he has never moderated his public opinions. He just says what he thinks about everything. And Tina Fey's advice to him was, and it was advice, maybe it was just insight. It was just, authenticity is dangerous and expensive. That was what she said to him. And she like, you know, it's the thing that I think is an unwritten but very well-known rule within Hollywood, which is like, be very careful when you publicly like admonish anything, because any movie, any film, whatever, because you don't know that casting director is going to be the next one that you have to work with. That person's agent was involved in something. There's just so many people around it that it's a trap. Now, while that is a defensive posture, and I think that the question of whether or not that is like a meritorious stance to have and one that is good for one's mental health is like a whole other bucket of chunder. I do think that this idea that like you are now a consumable object and you are an investment when you are at that level of public scrutiny. And I'm just gonna quote a Jess Vander because she put this in our chat, and it's really good. I regret to inform you that you're too famous now, sir. I had to add a voice to
Tina
it.
Fey from that interview.
I love that you can tell that I only read the Hollywood Reporter article and I heard the podcast about it. I haven't actually listened to Las Culturistas in a couple months. But yes, like that is the point, is that what got you here won't get you there. And this is a whole new part of the job that unfortunately your skill has now pulled you into. Do you
Yeah.
still want that job?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting in this case to like to your point about sort of like who are you, like and what is your like authentic self, and what is that bringing to the table and the story and everything. What's interesting in the past, like maybe like LeBron or Steph Curry, it was like very obvious the team couldn't have done that without them. And in this case, I don't think the team could have done it without Jayson Tatum, but him and Jaylen Brown are like very close in like their caliber. They're both excellent, but like they're not like top 3 player they're like just outside of that window. So it's not like they're like the most special person in the league, and have someone on their team that is very close. Like Jaylen Brown won the finals and the conference finals MVP, which was interesting. And so that like sort of pulls Tatum down. And it's also clear to the story point that it was like he really wanted this thing. He wasn't like being coy or like cool. It was like he's invested his whole life into this thing. It was like a pinnacle moment. and like, you know, when you want it badly, like that doesn't maybe come off as cool. And like in this case, he was being his authentic self. And in this case, I think it was also expensive for like the inverse. Like instead of like being like a hater, he was like aggressively like being like happy and like loved it. But it's like, you wanted it too much, you know, like you're too authentic.
Well, and that like, it's weird. I think that I always think about and I compare sports to just like gladiator times, like the audience all around the arena just watching blood sport happen on the ground. And it's silly to think of it that way, but it helps me sort of break down some of the like basics of what like viewed competition can be like. And I think the hardest part is that like it's the arena in the arena in the arena. Like you finish doing the thing that everybody said you were there for, but then the second you walk out of the arena, there's this whole other Hunger Games that's going on that people are expecting you to engage in. And like when you do or don't comport to those things, it has very significant impacts on your ability to go back in the arena and those who are going to sponsor you in getting back in the core arena at which you're good. And then and I think this is, and that's why I kind of think about it at that celebrity level, because like I think that we as spectators are so like we're completely responsible for this. Like we are the ones who set the expectation for all of the business dealings that happen around it. Like we set those dynamics and those expectations. And it's I want to say it's rude, it's wrong, and it is. Like when this comes up in politics a lot, so I will also share this in the show notes. There's a lot that's going on and being talked about with Trump and Biden this Thursday. They're doing their what do you call when you yell at debate? Thank you. When you yell at each other back and forth at a microphone. So they're doing their debate on Thursday,
podcast.
And there's a yeah, it's just a podcast. But there's a lot of talk about like debate prep and how do you prepare? How does your team prepare when they're embodying the other candidate that you are going to be debating against? And how do you deal in this specific debate with the fact that there's not an in-person audience and the audience is all at home? And how does that change the nature of the answers that are there? Then you have this whole other layer where like debate has nothing to do with governance. Like your ability to actually like mold factions and get ideas aligned on and create consensus is not at all measured within the confines of a debate. And on top of it all, ever since we've gotten social media involved in debates, it actually matters less and less what's said on the stage and more what clips are chopped in what ways to support whatever narrative is being developed by the candidates. The reason I bring all of this up is because I think that it highlights the unfairness that's at the heart of the public's reaction to Jayson Tatum within this, which is that all of these things are out of his control and all of these things are just who he is and have nothing to do with the thing that everybody pays to watch him do. And yet, we as the spectators have a huge and play an active immersive role in shaping out this whole other set of rules.
Mhm.
And in those different arenas, you kind of, I don't know, I think that we could probably be a little bit more thoughtful about what that means for what we get. At what point is it no longer just performance or entertainment, and at what point
Yeah.
is it something else?
It's interesting, like the politics and sports example. I think I wouldn't have probably naturally got there on my own, but I think it's like really apt, because I think in both cases you have like the vibe sumer, or like the culture sumer, and like the sort of like more technical oriented consumer, right? Like someone who is like looking at box scores and knows about basketball, and what is like not a casual in quotes, right? Like they're a diehard sports fan and they're going in. But the NBA in particular has like a whole cohort of people who consume based on like the personalities of the league and like all of the cultural output that surrounds it, in the same way that politics does as well, in not everywhere, in pockets, but like there are people who are like gonna vote for president or for local office based on like the vibes that someone is giving off. And what's interesting is like, I think maybe in this case Jayson Tatum was just like, just be good at sports and then you win, and then it like good things happen. And it was like like actually we did like a peer panel, and your metrics came back negative, so you won the championship but you didn't win the consumer championship.
Admittedly, we are having technical difficulties, so I'm going to say that because this may not have completely been in response to what Joey said, but I think that like this happens. So I'm staying in sports ball here, which is in and of itself scary. But there's been some backlash against Caitlin Clark. I mean, with women's basketball in general, with the WNBA, I think there's a lot of tension that's coming out into the public when it comes to the nature of like the communities that are represented within the league and what it means to try to quote unquote elevate a league, and that's so there's been a lot of discussion about some comments that Caitlin Clark made in response to questions about her boyfriend or her brothers and like how they feel about various political things that are along racial lines, and really complicated, not even complicated, but some odious thoughts that were shared. Her first response was basically like, I'm here to play basketball. The second response days later was like, I condemn what was said by those people, though they are not me. And there's been a backlash against that. There's been a lot of like, wait, so your PR team got a hold of you and started saying you can't just say that you're just here to play basketball, because your job is bigger, that you represent more than basketball. You didn't ask for this, but this is basically what the paycheck is actually for. You can sign everything on the dotted lines, but this is what that job is. And again, like, you always have the option of whether or not you want it, but you've got to recognize that now is your job. And I do think that that's like, again, it's in many ways, I just take it back to that principle of what got you here won't get you there. Like that, it doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what line of work you're in. As soon as you're a master at trait X, there is a whole other set of skills right above that you don't have the same amount of experience in. You go through those ebbs and flows of being a neophyte. And that is a big sign of, not just a sign of, but that is a part of taking on greater responsibilities. And most of those, I think, are things that many times are untrainable. They're not things that you can like dabble in a little bit. Like, you just get deep-ended over and over again as your career evolves.
Deep-ended as a verb is just chef's kiss.
I also say a lot, like, and I would give this to Jayson Tatum if he were sitting here next to me and he were asking me for my wise advice, as the old sage that I am. That basically, like, if you allow yourself to walk in stupid every day, you're always going to be better off than you were yesterday, because you will learn something different. You will have a little bit more grace for yourself when you step into these things. And you'll also recognize that like the stakes that you set for yourself or that you assumed were the stakes could be something totally different. And for those to shift around you on a daily basis is actually less stressful than feeling like you have to live in that tension between what the public expects and how that shifts and what you expect from yourself and how that shifts, let alone your teammates and all that. So Jason, give me a call.
Well, yeah, Jason, call Aaron. He's got some news. If you're summering in LA after you get back from Cancun, 123 Cancun, that's a sports ball inside joke.
I see.
Jess, if I'm sure you are now feeling like a mezzo fight within the realm of sports ball and whatever the older version of fight is for what comes after.
Let's see. Neo. I don't even know if Neo and Mezzo are in the same. I don't know.
Incredibly, mesophite is, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, it goes, a plant needing only a moderate amount of water.
I love that.
As opposed to someone who knows a medium amount of things.
I like that.
Well, Jess, do you want to take us on your championship corner?
Yeah, I've just got one thing to say, which is that the only reason we can do this podcast is because we aren't that famous.
Yes, accurate. Did you like how earlier I was comparing myself to Jayson Tatum in there? I was like, it's just like what I do. It's just like what we do for a living. It's the same.
We are the
same. We're the same. I'm a 26-year-old basketball phenom with a multi-million-dollar set of deals, contracts, etc.
Yeah. I'm also worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes. That's it. That's how we roll.
And I have a really big ring full of diamonds and emeralds.
Many emeralds. I think that's nice, Jess. I liked how you wrapped that up. That's great. Thank you for that. Indeed.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Yeehaw Gems. We sell emeralds. We sell sapphires. We occasionally sell diamonds, but they usually get thrown out the back of the truck. That's okay. Come down and see us at 2424 72 Lane down in Greensboro, North Carolina. We'll see you next time here. Ow!
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and rodeo queen, Jess Vander.
We'd also like to thank sound engineer and clerk to my Caitlin, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank programming coordinator and Mr. Ice Cream Nolita 2024, Les Jacobs.
And of course, Nora Mestrich and Sarah Gilbert. Your production help is it's as infinite as Tina Fey's humor. Thank you for that.
As always, thanks, Elen.
Thank you.
Special thanks to those little trophies with like the tiny little people on the top.
They're so cute.
You know?
Yeah.
Special thanks to you all for enduring the ongoing sports education journey that I am on. And now I regret having publicly made visible all of that. So if that bothers you, just pretend it didn't happen.
I'll do that.
Me.
But Jess, I'm like linked arm with you. Like we are both going through this together. Despite my best efforts to try to bring in drag queens into every conversation, I'm learning with you all about the sports ball. So I must be forgotten as well, if that were the case.
You know where you guys might find an interesting like little pocket within basketball? Thanks to all of the halftime performers across the world of basketball, the dance crews, Red Panda who rides like a 12-foot unicycle and juggles. I don't know how she does it. There's a lot of things that are juggled very high in the air on one wheel.
I can for sure corroborate Big Ellie of New York Liberty fame is an extraordinary performer. And with the juxtaposition of the timeless torches, the dance crew, of golden age ladies. It's just, yeah. So I'm a filthy casual. What am I gonna say? Put me in that bucket.
Hell yes. I also have a special thanks to give to Dollywood, which is where I was a couple days ago, and that's why my Southern was right top of brain. There's like a really cute panning for gold thing that you can do, but like y'all know how I feel about amusement parks and roller coasters. This is absolutely top 5, if not top 3 of amusement parks I've ever been to. It was an outstanding experience, and holy crap, like
high praise.
Wow.
And
Let's
legitimately,
talk about that for a whole episode next time.
that sounds very good to me. Bring the whole family. Ooh. And I'd also special thanks to Las Culturistas, because it is a really good podcast. I just don't listen as much as the headlines that they make. So yeah, listen to it. Matt and Bowen are fantastic, and they're very fun.
Well, we did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Done and done.
Love you, mean it. Bye.
Bye.